Hey, we are in the same place today as we were last week, which is impressive. And we still have a unofficial backdrop. So winner, winner. Welcome, guys. This is like our 12th or 13th episode now. Yeah, we're crushing it. So I'm proud of us. Number one, happy 12th episode, guys. But today we're going to be talking, kind of getting back into the training mode. So we had a couple of episodes that were off. We had a couple of visitors with us. I think we're going to have some visitors coming up here in the coming weeks. Last week, what did we talk about last week?
Questions.
Oh yeah, it was our Q&A. So that was a good time. Yeah, we talked about a lot of stuff. So that was fun.
See our second, wasn't one thing.
And that'll actually come out. So our membership actually coming Monday, but it's already out on our blog. So if you are hearing this early, we usually put this out earlier than what we actually publicize it out. But today we're going to talk about warm-ups, and in particular, general warm-ups versus specific warm-ups, maybe some tactics or philosophies each one of us have within warm-ups on how we implement it for clients. And then I thought it'd also be good to maybe incorporate some discussion around how we warm up individually as athletes, because all three of us are in different phases of athletics and how we train and what we train and things like that. So just thought it'd be good. So one kind of like precursor here is the training that we do here is all coach led. So no one's ever coming in and they're just like, hey, I think I'll just wander around the gym today. It's just
actually was my original CrossFit experience. All right, guys, we're gonna deadlift. You got 5 minutes warm up.
Oh,
yeah,
nice.
Actually, that's accurate.
That was. Wait a minute, this is early 2010.
Yeah,
not that we didn't know that warming up was a thing.
Athlete's choice.
Yeah.
On the board. And I'm
So
like,
mine-
I don't know if I have a choice.
yeah, my warm up was always led by me because I didn't have the same experience entering CrossFit as you guys did. I was doing CrossFit by myself or with a buddy of mine, and if we went to a CrossFit gym, we drove like 9 miles round trip to get there, and well, that was one of them, but actually we went into CrossFit De Pere, which was before, which became Valley Park. No, it just became Valley Park. So, but the first 2 times I went there, they weren't even there. We went on like a weekend because it was the only time we could make the drive. And they're like, well, yeah, just tell them that you're CrossFitters, you want to go upstairs. And they had this like upstairs area. They had a wooden built rig. It was literally like 4x4 or 6x6 posts.
I did end up there.
So like odd things. But anyways, that I didn't have anybody like taking me through warm-ups anyways. And I was a strength coach, and so I knew warm-ups, and so I would do my warm-ups and things. But back in the day when I was only following CrossFit.com, so this has been like 2007, 2008, there was only just a workout of the day on CrossFit. So you're like, you were totally in charge of your own warm-up. And some days it was like, okay, I have time for a warm-up, I'm gonna do a warm-up. Other days it was like, I just need to get this thing done. And at the same time, my son, who's about to turn 15 in a couple of days, was in a pumpkin seat with me. And so just like, here he is, and let's just kind of get this workout in. So anyways, warm-ups have kind of gone back and forth. Like you guys said, like the experience in a CrossFit scenario was a little different than mine. But warm-ups are extremely important, and all of our clients, whether they're PT, whether they're group, whatever, they all go through a structured warm-up. And those warm-ups vary based on what the exercise routine will be for the day. So let's talk a little bit about, warm-ups and why they're important and kind of go from there. So Coach Millie, you actually write our warm-ups for our group classes, right? So Coach Sam handles our workout programming, and then Coach Millie will fill in on the warm-up piece. Kind of give me let's talk about how you build a warm-up for a group class experience.
It's very scientific. I ask myself, what body parts are we using?
Okay.
And that's where I start. And then usually my goal is to warm them up either in a similar movement pattern that we will be doing using a different implement, or I do kind of try to focus also like time under tension, like planks, or so yeah, I just look, number one, what body parts are we using? Number two, how can I get you to move in that way under a lighter weight or just same movement pattern? And then I also like, again, time under tension to just really warm up those muscles that we're going to be using.
Yeah. So, when you think about time under tension, one of the things is like usually that time under tension has something to do with either tempo of how we move through motion or or holds or static positioning, right? And a lot of times what we're looking for is activation. So activation of the muscles or of the structures that we might be using moving forward into the workout.
And and it's really breaking down every movement. So if we're doing front squats, I'm not just warming up my low body. We have to actually hold the barbell. So I need my chest warmed up, my arms, my wrists to a certain degree should be primed and ready to go. So there's a lot that should go into a warm up, because even though you think, oh, squat, low body, if it's a front squat, you are actually using upper body too. And your core. You can't forget your core. You have to warm up your core as well.
Anything that you think about, Coach, when you get into that group programming situation, when you're building out a warm up, even though Coach Millie might be writing it or whatnot, you do that as well. You know, what do you think about?
Some more broad structures that I look for a steady escalation to start. So like we are looking to constantly, so by escalation, I mean like whatever we're doing, it needs to intensify as we go along. So we need to start off very base. We're going to move slower. We are looking to start the process of raising the body temperature. Again, so it starts off as slower movements, getting into the movement patterns that we're going to either do for the day, or, you know, we'll go into the more specific stuff here in a little bit. So that's like the big broad structure of all of it to kind of, if I'm going to add anything to what else I was saying, and then what Millie said, and then what Millie said, and then what Millie said. But Millie has a very good grasp on the prep side of things. But the only other thing I'm looking at, again, it's escalation, it's increasing in body temperature. It's starting off with the lower intensity with the more practiced mindset around the movement patterns that goes into higher intensity execution. And that's getting the nervous system up regulated. Yeah. And that's the kind of the bridge between the general and the specific. Yeah.
I think you get that there, like that escalation of starting out from a general perspective. So a lot of times, like your warm-ups will start, even though there might be some precursors to what the movement patterns might be, there's some level of general body temperature increase, heart rate increase, respiratory rate increase, to get actually what I call the juices flowing, if you will, to then
continue our scientific terms.
Yeah, I'm so scientific.
Blood is the juice, by the
way.
Yeah,
it is the juice.
Blood is the.
It can be it could be misconceived there. If
I'm
juice in a gym situation.
I'm well aware. This is the second time it's starting to come up today.
Yeah. So okay, so general versus specific. I would say that I don't have a ton to add there. I think for me, one of the things that I try to focus on is again, general body temperature, getting that stuff moving a little bit, starting to get in through general movement patterns, again, escalating from more basic to more specific, and then moving into the actual specific exercises. One piece of the puzzle I always think about is like getting the body to move and warm up dynamically and go through what I would call dynamic warm up, which is like the best way, again, my scientific terms here, is stretching with movement. Okay. So I might be stretching or lengthening or increasing range of motion of muscle fibers through motion, not necessarily through static stretching, but there can be some actually specific, like, general static mobility drills that we might do in a warm-up, such as Coach Millie mentioned the front squat. We might do some front rack or wrist mobility work to get started, right?
Yeah, and to kind of piggyback on that one a little bit, to kind of throw a little bit of more science in there. But like as Josh is talking about, like what happens is, or why the stretching with movement is proven to be better, is proven to be more successful, is that there's a neurological component to the stretch. Like we're not laying on a foam roller and letting it happen to us. We're not casually just sitting there and passively hanging out. That those are down regulators. Yep. And in a warm up, that is the opposite of what we're trying to do. We're trying to upregulate. So what you're getting into is there needs to be a neurological component to any sort of mobility or anything based on gaining access to range of motion. We want that neurological connection to it. Whenever we're doing like the banded stretch, you're not just hanging there on the band, you're pulling down, you're engaging this muscle and relaxing. Right. And you've got that connection now to that movement pattern. And that's how we here get it done. And
for sure,
we do it that way on the advice of people that really actually know the science through and through.
Yeah. So one little question that can come up, like, should I be stretching before my workout? The answer could be yes, we might do some stretching, but typically that's going to be active stretching versus passive or static stretching, where when we down regulate, we work on do that in cool downs. And that's where we work to more passive stretching or static stretching holds and work to down regulate. There's breathing work in there and everything else. So, okay. So, when we think about that from a general perspective, that's kind of how we might approach a general warm-up. How do you guys approach specific warm-ups? Like, what would be your tactics as Millie, as you start to think, okay, got my general warm-up in, how do you start to build your specific warm-up?
Obviously, it varies a little bit. If it's a strength day, then if we're using a barbell or whatever we're using, I want to make sure we break down the movement using a lighter weight. So that's kind of step one. Step two is, are we building up in weight? Are we, is it multiple weight jumps? Like, are we getting as heavy as possible today? Are we going to a medium weight? So I will factor that in as far as, I guess, a breakdown, a rep scheme of how they can most efficiently get to their working weight without having too many reps out before they actually start the workout. If it's more of a WOD, if you will, I will take whatever the reps are and either have or quarter them and have them do anywhere from 1 to 3 sets, building in weight as they go. It helps, number one, if they think they know the weight they're going to use, and then they put these movements together and then they're like, just kidding. that I didn't.
They taste the soup.
Right. If they don't believe me when I tell them how it's going to feel. So it gives them a couple of touches to get the flow of the workout at less reps and find the weight that is appropriate for the intent that day. So that's kind of how in my head when I'm writing those specific warm-ups.
Gotcha. Anything to add on that, Coach?
Yeah, I mean,
specific warm-ups?
it's progression to provide the escalation. Yep. Sometimes it is movement progressions, like maybe we're going to get into a clean and jerk, and we do the pausing drills, or we do reps with pauses, and then we add a little bit of weight and we take out one of the pauses, we keep the other one, and then we remove that. Or it's weight jumps, it's progressions of like in today's warm-up. So we've got a 21-15-9 on devil's press and calorie row. One of the things I did in the warm-up, because for those of you that have done these workouts, you know that one of the hardest parts of these workouts are between the ears, like as the intensity rises. So I try to get that rise in the nervous system. So what I do is they do an escalating rep scheme in their buildup. So they did 3 rounds of buildup today.
Right.
The first one was like 3 calories on the rower, right into three devil's press, then 5 and 5, and then 8 and 8. So they kind of stair step their way into that bigger set that they're going to start with. And again, escalation through progression.
Yeah, that's a big point that you hit on, and Coach Millie hit on as well. Is like, it's not just escalating the progression. So there could be gymnastic skills. So sometimes we hide those progressions into our general warm-ups, like. Let's do some dead hangs from the pull-up bar, which might be a great progression to do when someone is going to go do pull-ups or toe to bar, but I might sneak that into the general warm-up piece, but I might get more specific in the more specific warm-up by adding in kip swings and then a kipping knee raise and then to a kipping toe to bar or whatnot. But the other piece is the load, right? So progressing the load, but in progressing the intensity. And that's one thing that I always try to think about when I'm working through, especially with CrossFit style workouts, when we're going through a higher intensity conditioning workout. We talk about this a lot. The length of your warm-up really is determined by the length and the intensity of your workout. So a workout that is longer and less intense usually demands less of a warm-up than a workout that is shorter and more intense. And that seems weird, but when I go to do 21-15-9 of cal row and devil's press, that's a high intensity, high heart rate, and high gas pedal workout, if you will.
We should be in zone 4.
So we're moving very quickly. The build that I need to get to so that my body's ready to hit the gas pedal, okay, when it's time to go at 3, 2, 1, go, has to be much longer in duration to get me ready. I'm not sure why something's happening to my computer. Don't worry about that. We're gonna say not now, and
There
We're still recording.
and we're back. So good. Yeah, I edited one. We had something like this happen before.
Really?
And I edited that. Yeah, when Bill and I did an episode. Yeah.
I assumed the answer was no.
Yeah, I know. I'm pretty good at editing.
That's good.
I'm not editing this conversation about editing that.
So it's really confusing.
Yeah.
What
So
am I talking about?
so anyways, taking up the intensity to get ready for that high intensity piece is extremely important when we're working through a CrossFit style workout, because people don't realize, like, if you don't get that heart rate up or you don't get that intensity up prior to the workout at 3, 2, 1, go, when you go to that first set of 21, like now your body's responding to the increased intensity, and it's going, oh my gosh, what's happening? We want that to happen. And that is, like Coach said, that's a neurological response. When we preload weight, when we load up weight and progressively load, it's not just going like, hey, I just want you to get warm. It's, I want your nervous system to respond and adapt to the load progression that we have happening as we go through. To go to 135 pounds, I need you to hit 95 and 115 progressively, to then that way when you go to 135 pounds, your neurological system has responded and adapted. And that's one thing I struggle with, and it's usually, let me just call you out, it's our younger people that think, and I'm not even gonna say younger guys, although you guys are dumber sometimes,
statistically speaking,
but
much dumber.
It's usually like they want to make big jumps, so they want to go empty bar, and then the first load they put on is 135 pounds. Well, because I'm going to 225 pounds on the deadlift, coach.
That's what
like
starts.
Great. And they think about their big wheels, and you athletes out there that played high school or college sports, you're the worst. And I'll just tell you that. But but they don't. Then all of a sudden they wonder why 225 feels like a house. Yeah, but I'm different. They wonder why my nervous system's been responding for about 20 some years, so we're good.
It's refined.
But
Okay.
when they make those jumps and they wonder why they can't, they're like, oh gosh, that feels awful. Like, it does feel awful because you didn't allow your nervous system to respond effectively and actually adapt to that stimulus. So
I think about it, like one way to kind of simplify this, kind of think about it. Whenever you're going to run like a hard interval, is the first, how often is your first one your best one? Almost never.
Yeah, almost never.
Right? So when we get into that shorter, intense workout that Josh is talking about, we kind of need to be on round 3 already. Otherwise, if we truly hit that game pace and we're on round 1 or kind of into round 2, that's whenever we get that negative response. And then your brain's telling you to slow down. The physiological response is more uncomfortable than it needs to be. The 21-15-9 executed perfectly with warm-up, prep, breathing is already uncomfortable.
Yeah.
We don't need to stack things. You don't need to stack the deck in its favor already.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so we've got 3 different people. So I might even just start, because Coach Sam, and I already mentioned that, like, I'm the person that might put more load on than I should at a time. First of all, I would say that, like, I've probably learned a little bit more as I'm older, and not because I need my nervous system to respond. I actually need my muscles to actually wake up. If I put too much weight on right away, like my hamstrings are going. So
I don't know what my cold board list is, but I don't want to find out.
Yeah,
I used to think it was fun.
Right, but I would say, like, so for me personally, when it comes to warm-ups, I'm someone who's always up against the clock. So I seldom get enough time to warm up and work out. And I am of the mindset, like, if I need to get anything done, I will skip my warm-up so that I can get my workout in. Now, one of the things that I would say is an advantage to me is that I do have 20 some years of experience, not only as an athlete, but then also as a coach of 20 years almost now.
And the other thing I'll say is that you also tend to down-regulate, lower the intent in the early part of your workout.
Correct.
From what we're actually going for. Because you're like, is this ideal? No. Is this what I've got? Yes. And this is what I'm going to get done. Yeah.
So a lot of times my workouts will turn into, like, hey, round 1's going to be my warm-up, and I can up-regulate during my workout. One of the things that, like, gets people, I think, sometimes, especially if we have some, like, younger kids, and I'm not talking like 30-year-olds, I'm talking like our mid-20s or something, and maybe they're raring to go in round 1, 2, and 3, and then all of a sudden Coach Josh passes them in round 4, and I go, it's not because I'm better, it's because I'm finally warm. So,
and I'm better.
but it's more or less my old body finally feels better as I get further into a workout. And it's usually it's usually because, like, I'm finally primed and ready to go. And so for me personally, like, I don't need a ton of development when it comes to, like, the progressions of the lifts, those things like that, because technicalities of my movement are sound. I really need a lot of the general, like, I really need to get my blood flowing. I need to do a little bit of specific mobilities on some injuries and issues that I currently have, or things that I work around and things. So there's prep things that I have to do a little differently. When it comes down to like getting into the actual meat and potatoes of the work, that stuff comes very naturally, and that's only because of my experience. But I have found as I've gotten older, like I definitely, my warm-ups really have to extend to get me moving in the ways I like to move. Because if I want to move fast, then I've got to do the prep work that I want to do so that I'm not hitting roadblocks in, like that sort of stuff. So my warm-ups really pertain to getting my old joints moving, if I will. How about you, Coach? Like what are some things that you put into your warm-ups that are specific to you and what you
So for me, it's obviously being an amputee, it's different and it's not. Personally, like, again, I think everyone would benefit from this, but when I'm training at my best, I'm not up against the clock. My warm-up starts with breath work. Like I do up-regulating breath work. It's my jam. I enjoy it. And I've seen massive benefits in my life from it. So I'm not going to give that up.
Sure.
So from there, I start off, my warm-up is like, I work through all the major, our primary movement patterns. Our movement patterns are infinite, but we've got our few major ones, our hinge, our pull, our squat, and things like that, and our press. And so I work through just some of all of those, not a crazy amount, but it's 8 minutes. It typically takes me about 8 minutes.
Sure.
And by the end of it, I am very generally ready for just about any task that's coming.
Cool.
From there, I'm at a point where I can pretty well get myself, at that point, I'm probably within 5 to 10 minutes of being ready to all the way start again. This is me training at my absolute very best and most efficient. And then that, like I said, so I'm able to, because that set warm up that I'll tend to use. One of the reasons, again, is that why it's important to me to kind of practice, use those practice rounds is, with the prosthetic, my movement patterns they're not different, but the strategies that I have to employ are, and I've only been able to practice them for the last 2 years, and 2 years is not that long when I consider the quality that I want to train at.
Sure.
So that's another reason why I use such an inclusive warm-up, is that so I can practice my movement patterns, I can make corrections, and I can make sure that things are firing the way that it needs to do what I need to do on my prosthetic. Or I can find out that it's not. And if I can't get it going, then I know I need to make an adjustment within the first 8 minutes of being in. And that's a really important piece of being an adaptive athlete, especially. So we talked about, longer term athletes, the same story, but as being an adaptive athlete, it's really important to know when you actually need to just change your training for the day because something's not firing right.
Yeah.
And if I continue to push through, I'm developing poor habits and poor motor patterns that I don't want.
Well, and I would say that as an amputee, there probably is these situations that like because, and again, you're very young in this phase, you're only a couple of years in, you very much like each day might be moving differently than you were the day before based on changes that are occurring or imbalances that have
something funny, like it has a bigger effect than it used to, and that's not because I'm 32 instead of 22.
No, yep.
And the other thing I've really liked about it is it's allowed me to have this standardized thing, so I can employ new tactics and know exactly what they're doing. Like I've been playing around with some blood flow restriction on my residual limb, but nothing else has changed. I tossed that band on. And the results of I'm a week and a half into using it, and it's been an incredible thing. And if I didn't have such a standardized thing, I wouldn't be able to assess these. So
yeah. Well, cool. Okay. Coach Millie, how about you? Obviously different athlete than myself, than Coach Sam. Are there things that you really implement into your warm-ups?
We're 8 and change postpartum.
Yeah,
postpartum, right.
Postpartum, and actually it's kind of good that this, I just got the all clear from my physical therapist. But there are some things she wants me to incorporate into my warm-up each time. So we just talk about all things here. So my pubic bone is shifting, and it still shifts, and it gets out of alignment, and it hurts a lot. So I never know when it's going to happen. So she's given me a technique that before I work out is basically manipulating through pressing to make sure that it's in, and then do it after the workout as well. So that I'm going to add that into my personal warm-up every time, just to make sure I'm starting from a good point. And for me, making sure my core is warm and firing, and that my brain is talking to it, because I still my ab muscles are coming together, but there's still I just want to make sure everything is firing So whether that's like doing some bird dogs, doing some breathing techniques. So those are just a couple things I pepper in, you know, pre-baby Millie probably did not warm up appropriately because I was always in a hurry. And I will say as I get older, definitely I can get away with that with low body exercises, but my upper body, my shoulders, no more.
Yeah.
Like it just does not feel good. And I'm like, yeah, I'm probably gonna do something dumb if I don't warm up.
Yeah.
So I definitely can't always warm up. And kind of like you, Josh, if I am in a hurry, it might look at like a couple warm-up sets.
Yeah.
Well, I'll go lighter, I'll even get the actual game weight out throughout the workout. But yeah, definitely those detail things matter.
So I, you know, you touched on a couple things, Millie. We've said this a couple times, and even Coach Sam had mentioned on it, like in a perfect scenario, in the best case scenario, right? And so they're very seldom are their best case scenarios. One of the things, like for us, so for us, like our early morning clients, they come in, it's 5:30 in the morning. They're just getting out of bed. Some of them are literally like have literally like rolled out of bed, and then they're coming in. Like when I coach 5:30 in the morning, I'm up at 3:50 in the morning. Like I am no nonsense. I need my morning time, whatever else. But some of our clients, you know, they live across the street, so they literally might roll out of bed, like they're in their workout clothes. They just slept in them, so they didn't have to even get changed. Grab their water, grab their shaker, and they're out the door, right? And so one thing that we do is we really make sure we're adamant about it for our morning coaches, is that they're here at least 15 minutes ahead of time, like open and ready to go. So those clients, because we have a lot of clients that are maybe in their 50s and 60s that work out at that time, they do need a little extra time. So one thing that we would encourage, one, in the wintertime, when you're walking into the gym shivering, like you may want to get here 5 or 10 minutes early. And one of the best things you do is, from a general perspective, is jump on a piece of cardio, like a rower, a bike. Sometimes you might even see those things trickle into our warm-ups in the wintertime, like where it's like, we call it 3 minutes of cardio, and you literally just get on something that we have a bike, we have a rower, whatever else, and it's just like this light, just like a light kind of get the blood flowing, get the body starting to respond to more movement. Okay, I'm getting ready to do something, and really just wake some things up. But the other thing too is, if you're someone who struggles with time, like, hey, I can get here at 5:30 at night or a 5 p.m. class, but I can't get here at 4:45. What do I do? Like, one of the things that I do, a tactic that I use in my warm up, is not just down regulating maybe my first couple of rounds in a conditioning workout. Sometimes it's smashing warm up pieces within the rest of my work. So for example, if we've got 5x5 deadlifts in the strength work, but maybe we've got something else coming up afterwards. We're gonna do some pull-ups. Well, my shoulders need 20 more minutes of work or warm up than maybe Sam's do. So what I would do is I'll do a set of 5 deadlifts, and then during my rest time, I've got a couple minutes here. I'm gonna go do some shoulder mobility. I'm gonna get some different prep work in. I'm gonna grab some bands. So smashing, when you're strapped for time, if you've got 45 minutes or you've got 40 minutes and you've got 6 different things in your warm up or in your workout, don't feel like you have to do your entire warm up. Sometimes I prep for the first exercise I'm going to do and prep for the other exercises actually while I'm going. And I know you do that too.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty successful strategy.
Yeah.
I think there's also probably an argument to be made that makes a little more sense.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't make sense to do prep for something that you're going to do 2 things before, and then you're not doing it for 40 minutes.
Yeah.
Another strategy, especially if you're getting into the winter, especially if you're coming in the morning, or you know that you're going to come in right on time and you need that warm-up time, get your car hot.
Yeah,
like
for sure.
Like I there's another coach in the area. He calls it, he's like, get the car sauna going. He's like, you can get it, turn it up to where it's hotter than what's comfortable. And we're up regulating, like you get a lot of those effects, and it's a really underrated tool. It's something I don't know that I've ever really talked to too many people about doing, but really I should have. And I highly recommend that one. Especially again, if you're a 5:30 a.m. and we're early November, know that we've got months of cold coming. I'll tell you what, like, do it, commit to it for a week, and tell me if you decide if it's good or bad.
Yeah. If you're sweating when you come to the gym because you were in your car sauna, it's a win, right?
Like, right. I mean, like, it puts you.
Cold gym feels good.
Yeah.
It really does make a big difference. What are we talking about? What's our first piece of general warm up? Body temperature.
Body temperature, right? Yeah. And that's the thing, is like, we have a big facility. It's hard to actually keep the facility as warm as what you'd like it. But the other thing that we wind up with is, if we put our gym at even like 65, by the time people move for 10 minutes in classes, they're
they hate it.
complaining because it's too hot in here because of the body temperature that brings it up. So we keep the gym, it's about 60 degrees in the morning when it's cold out. And that really does it does make a little bit of a difference if you're going into that cooler climate or cooler area. If you come in warm, that's helpful. So
I mean, you're in the car anyway.
right. Anything else on the warm-ups? Do them.
The only other thing I'd say, if you have been in this one and you are relating more to them than I, talking about the limited time, this, that, and the other, I don't have much time for this warm up ready to go. It's very inclusive movements. Turkish get-ups, the rower, and a couple of pull-ups. You'd be amazed at what you can do in 3 to 5 minutes with just those movements. Commit to moving through them quickly. You're already in a rush. Just have a plan. And again, you throw in the Turkish get up, the rower, and a pull up. You have a lot of your major joints moving. You are moving through multiple ranges of motion. You are neurologically challenged, and you're going to be decently ready to go, to be honest, in 5 minutes. Yeah,
I actually was thinking about this in the garage the other day because it was a little cooler out. And I was a little strapped for time. It was like a 6:45 in the morning workout on a Saturday. I don't work out in the morning, by the way. My body doesn't like to work out in the morning. So I felt like I had to warm up, but I also didn't want to warm up because I'm like, it's 6:45. I just want to get this thing done. But I'm going to put it in the link too. We have a little, literally a standing dynamic warm up. We actually put it together for us when we were on COVID lockdown stuff that I put together. I did it in my garage today. It's simple, but it's full body. It's not loaded. So there's no Turkish dips, no pull up things like that. Cause sometimes you're thinking about if you have no equipment or whatever else, that's how
it doesn't have to be.
But that's kind of what I did was just a quick little all right, I don't have a lot of time. So what can I do really quickly to get my joints moving and that sort of, and that's a perfect example. The reason the Turkish get up pops in there is because the full body movement of going from down and up. The pull up, it incorporates the entire upper body and core. So those are all having that go-to warm up. I think, like you said, coach, is extremely important and helpful. So
have a panic plan.
Well, if you have more questions on how to warm up properly, or you just want to work out with coaches who actually warm you up, hit us up. You can actually get on our page. Right on this page, it just says, more info or whatnot. You can book a no sweat intro. Sit down with us, talk a little bit more about training. And next time you're in the gym, make sure you get warm first, especially these cold months. Avoid injury, increase performance, and stay young for longer.
Worst case scenario, bear crawl for 60 seconds.
Oh, that's the worst.
That's the best.
No.
If you have no time,
inchworm push-ups. I won't do them in the morning. I say no.
Told someone today, I was like, you want to see Coach Josh complain about an exercise, put in inchworms, and they're like, really?
If you put in more than 5, I'm not.
I usually put in 8.
Yeah. See you guys.
That's what yesterday. It was 8 inchworms yesterday.